My warm welcome to today's talk. It's Wednesday the 4th of May. Now I want to look at Paxlovid today, which is the Pfizer antiviral drug. There's evidence has just been published that it is not efficacious for post-exposure prophylaxis. And despite being actively promoted by the White House current COVID czar, for example, I'm not convinced that the evidence that it is efficacious in current populations is there at all. And we'll look at that and you can make your own mind up about it. And then on a completely separate topic at the end of this video, I want to look at the possibility that some cynical people are seeing of senior officials having vested interest in drug sales. Completely different topic. So if you just want the Paxlovid bit, of course, just stick around for the first few minutes. Now, at the moment, let me just show you. This is the paper here. This is the original paper here that the Paxlovid data is based on, and we'll be looking at this shortly. It is a good quality paper. But here we are here. So this is the Paxlovid. Paxlovid. Of course, it's the antiviral, right? Now, the paper that promoted the FDA Food and Drug Administration Emergency Use Authorization is the one I've just shown you. It's based on that paper. Do always check it out for yourself. Don't take my word for anything. If what I'm saying is not based on the evidence, then reject what I say, because we have to be evidence-based. Now, this is part of what's called the EPIC HR trial. Now, all trials these days seem to have to have snappy acronyms, no matter how much the words have to be contorted to fit into the initials. But this one's actually not too bad. So it's evaluation of protease inhibitors. That's the type of drug. It inhibits the proteases that makes the viruses work for COVID-19 in high-risk patients, EPIC HR. Now, very good study, this one here, very comprehensive study. It had 1,120 patients receive the, let me try and get this right, nirmatrelvir. I guess you can pronounce that in different ways, plus ritonavir, which is a known antiviral. Anyway, so the combination of this nirmatrelvir and ritonavir is Paxlovid. The combination is Paxlovid. So they had 1,200 patients in the intervention group who received the active treatment. They had 1,226 patients in the placebo group. They compared the two. Perfect. That is good science, double-blind, randomized controlled trial. Now, the relative risk of this, they found the difference between the two groups. The relative risk. Now, of course, the relative risk is the risk of this group relative to this group, not relative to the whole population. So the relative risk of progression to severe COVID-19, 89% lower than the risk with the placebo. So this group here had 89% less chance of going on to developing severe COVID, but that's compared to this group here. But that's normal. That's how this is often done. Well, you're always done, virtually always done. The absolute risk. So if you're just a person who's got the qualifications to get into the trial, your chances of developing severe COVID overall were 70%. In other words, we would hope that the other 93% would make an uneventful natural recovery. But it went down to 1%. Would I have that? Yes, I would accept that risk. But then we have to look at when this trial was done and a bit about this trial to put this in some sort of context now. Now, here we have a bit of data from the trial. This was done in people that were already symptomatic and they were unvaccinated. Now, this is the key thing here. These people were unvaccinated. They had not been vaccinated. They would presumably have very little immunity or no immunity at all if they hadn't been exposed to the natural virus. Non-hospitalized adults. But the key thing is these were unvaccinated people. And they're at high risk for progression to severe COVID-19 disease. So these were people that already had risk factors. So there were higher risk individuals. Not everyone. This is not the whole population. So they took unvaccinated and high risk individuals. These are the people that are by far at highest risk. But of course now most people are vaccinated. Now most people, the vast majority of people, have been exposed to the virus naturally. Therefore have got this double immunity or immunity. Some people have got immunity from the vaccine. Some people have got immunity from the virus itself. Some have got this combined hybrid immunity. In the UK, it's over 99% have now got this immunity. In the United States, it's also very high numbers. So, I'm not going to use the word cherry-picked, but this was a select group of patients, unvaccinated, non-hospitalized, risk of progression to disease, and we noticed that this was during the time of the more pathogenic Omicron variant, 16th of July to the 9th of December 2021. So this isn't, sorry, did I say Omicron? This is not the Omicron time, this is the Delta time. This is the more pathogenic Delta, not the current Omicron that we currently have at the moment. And also during this time, of course, way less people, because this was prior Omicron, way less people had been exposed to the virus at this time. Therefore, way less people had had the opportunity to develop natural immunity. Way less people. So times have changed. If unvaccinated people and previously infected people are partly protected, and it's reasonable to assume they are, then more people would need to be treated to prevent one adverse event. Now, my understanding from the Guardian article we looked at yesterday is this is $530 for a 5-day course. So if people are now more protected than they were, if Omicron is less pathogenic than Delta, what we know that is, then how many would you need to treat to prevent an adverse event? 10? Well, that takes it up to that much, doesn't it? Would you need to treat 100? Well, that would take it up to that much per case. Would you need to treat 1,000? Well, that take it up to that much a case. Can you see we're getting on to pretty serious money now? And is this the best way to spend money is the question. Now, Pfizer press release of the 5th of November. But just before we go on, let's make it quite clear what I'm saying here is that the population now is more immune than the population this was tested on. So why isn't this trial repeated now? This is the key thing. If we repeated the trial now, we'd have the data. But is it logical to extrapolate, because we're supposed to be evidence-based, is it logical to extrapolate from one to the other, as the White House seems to be pushing? Pushing's maybe not the right word. That sounds a bit Steppenwolf-esque, doesn't it? Promoting. Promoting would be a better word. Promoting clinicians to prescribe more Paxlovid. But is that based on evidence? Well, I'm not sure that it is, because it's based on previous populations. And of course, we don't have a previous population. We have a current population with much higher levels of immunity. So we really need data for this. Why isn't that trial being done? So Pfizer press release 5th of November 2021. This was about the original paper. Our antiviral candidate has the potential to save patients' lives. Well, it did then. Hopefully now. We don't really know now. Reduces the severity of COVID-19 infections. Indeed, it did do that. And eliminate up to and limit up to 9 out of 10 hospitalizations. That's true. That's true. Providing the patients were symptomatic, unvaccinated, non-hospitalized adults at risk for progression to severe disease. In that case, during this time period, that was true. It was true at that time period. And here's the press release from Pfizer that dealt with that at that time. Now, naturally, all the links are here, so you can check out what I'm saying is accurate. Now, Pfizer shared in vitro. Now, another argument here as well, we've moved on from Delta to Omicron. Is this drug likely to work with the Omicron variant? So there's evidence that it worked with the Delta variant in terms of the pure pharmacodynamic effect of the drug, the antiviral effect of the drug. Is it likely to be effective against Omicron? And that's what this press release is about. I think here, yep, that's this one. Against Omicron variant, effective against Omicron variant. Now, again, the information is there. We don't like science by press release, but it's what we've got at the moment. But let's look at some of the things. Now, the studies here are done in vitro. in vitro. This is not an in-life study. It's not an in vivo study. It's basically a bench-based study. And these are the references for it. The results show that in all cases that the nirmatrelvir showed all cases that molnupiravir was a potent inhibitor of its target. In other words, it still worked as this protease inhibitor. So that makes perfect sense. Now, this is only an in vitro study. It's not in vivo. It's not in life. It's an in vitro study. It's not peer-reviewed publication, but I do believe it because pharmacologically it makes perfect sense that you wouldn't expect the enzymic systems to work differently in the Omicron as opposed to the Delta. So I'm quite happy to accept that. So that gets a big tick. We'll accept that. What we don't accept is that this evidence applies to the population now. So it's not the virus that's different now so much, partly, it's that the population is different now. Population is more immune now, so we need data to make this evidence-based. Now, in terms of, this is the latest release in terms of post-exposure prophylaxis. So that's on this one here. Again, science by press release. Don't like it, but no reason to particularly question it. And let's just summarise what this is saying. Does Paxlovid work for post-exposure? In other words, you're in a household, someone's tested positive, you protect the other members of the household. That would be post-exposure prophylaxis. Or infected person in the workplace, you protect the other people in the workplace. Now, here they evaluated data from 2,957 adults. That is a good sample size. Pfizer observed a reduction of 32% in a 5-day course and a 37% in a 10-day course. But you could say it was a bit naughty of them to put that in, really. I'm not saying that, but some people might say they were a bit naughty to put that in. Because these results, this is a direct quote, however, were not statistically significant. Now, if it's not statistically significant, that means there is, we must assume that there is no difference between the groups. Not statistically significant. In other words, these numbers, 32 and 37% reduction, mean nothing because they didn't reach statistical significance. And with this kind of number, you would expect statistical significance because that has a large sample size. And as such, the primary endpoint of reducing the risk of confirmed and symptomatic COVID-19 infection in adults who have been exposed to the virus through a household contact was not met. In other words, it doesn't work as a post-exposure prophylaxis. So there we go. It's not working as a post-exposure prophylaxis. And we don't have data to tell us whether it's working on the current population or if it is working, to what degree it's working. This is a study that should be carried out. I suspect Pfizer can afford to carry this out, so it would be good if they did. Now, this is the Pfizer Paxlovid information sheet for patients here. Now, I just put this in to point out that no drug is completely safe. If anything's going to work, there is an element of risk. So Pfizer here pointing out that Paxlovid is not FDA approved. Paxlovid is an investigational medicine. Some medicines may interact with Paxlovid and cause serious side effects, so it must only be prescribed by someone who's medically qualified, nurse practitioners, doctors. I don't think pharmacists are prescribing this because you've got to take into account the interactions with other medicines. If you take too much Paxlovid, they're worried about that, call the emergency room. So all good of them to tell us these possible side effects. Allergic reactions could result in trouble swallowing or breathing, swelling of the mouth, lips, face, throat, tightness, hoarseness, skin rash. Liver problems, tell your healthcare provider right away if you get loss of appetite, yellowing of your skin, various side effects. These aren't that surprising, but that they are spelt out by the company. Other possible side effects. So there's potential side effects here. So what we have is a drug with many potential side effects. that is, I would say, phenomenally expensive, certainly for treating thousands or millions of people, for which I don't really think we've got evidence for. The whole point, and the FDA has made a big song and dance about this, to put it mildly, about things needing to be evidence-based, and yet here promoting something which we don't have evidence for in the current population. We only have evidence for it in the previous population during Delta times, in people who were less likely to carry natural antibodies. Before evolution, or depending on your perspective, the creator of evolutionary processes provided the Omicron variant to produce mass stimulation of our immune systems all over the world, as we potently saw illustrated in the reports from Uganda. So anyway, so that's the end of that bit. Now, a completely separate topic. I'm just going to tag on to the end of this video here. So this is Dr. Jha, the White House COVID-19 coordinator. As we said, Paxlovid, he wants to push to reach the vulnerable. It does actually say, I think that's the New York Times article, so they actually say push. That's a bit Steppenwolf-esque, isn't it? We were polite and said promote. Anyway, so they want to push it to reach the vulnerable. Doctors are too hesitant to prescribe the drug, so they're being encouraged to prescribe this drug. But based on current evidence, we'll put a question mark on that. Now, Dr. Jha, according to this well-known source here, Wikipedia, may be completely wrong. If you read my Wikipedia article, it's a bit funny, but there you go. I don't think he is now. I'm not really sure, but he was senior advisor at Albright Stonehouse Group. The firm advises clients on international policy and global markets. Now, some of you may prefer your senior medical advisors not to have a potential, no one's saying it's a conflict of interest, of course, but a potential apparent conflict of interest as a cynical person might view it. Some of you may prefer that. Personally, I have no financial interests in pharmaceutical industries. And all of the nurses and doctors I've worked with on the front line, none of them I've known have got these interests. Financial interests. So it's a pity that very senior people sometimes appear to have a potential conflict of interest. No one's saying that would result in them promoting a particular drug, of course not. But it's an apparent conflict of interest. You can decide. You don't need me to tell you what to think, do you? Patrick Vallance, our Chief Scientific Officer, 2012 to 2018. President of Research and Development at Global Pharmaceuticals, GSK. We don't believe, it's been reported in the Telegraph that he's cashed in £5 million worth of shares. I mean, £5 million. This is more than you would expect. Way more than you and me most of us could hope to earn in several lifetimes. It's a huge amounts of money. And yet these people are making decisions about the health of the entire population. Again, no one's saying that there's any ill practice here, but some of you might think it doesn't look good. Some of you might even suspect it does affect decision making. That's not for me to say. Now, this is from the this article here is from the British Medical Journal. Future jobs of FDA hematology oncology reviewers. Check out the references for yourself. More than a quarter of the Food and Drug Administration employees who approved cancer and hematology drugs from 2001 through to 2010 left the agency and now work for or consult for pharmaceutical companies. Now, no one's saying that they anticipated this move and therefore would take decisions which might make them more attractive to a future employer. But some people are uncomfortable with what is seen as the, what do you call it? that door that spins round and round, the rotating door, whatever you call those things. Yeah, some of you might be uncomfortable with that. And of course, senior people can move from pharmaceutical jobs into administration, decision-making jobs, and then potentially back into pharmaceutical jobs again. So perhaps it should be a criteria for senior appointments that they have no apparent financial interests. As we say, completely separate topic to the one we looked at the front at Paxlovid. That is purely about the evidence. So what we need is a randomised double-blind control now, please, from Pfizer, examining the effectiveness of Paxlovid in the current population, which is highly vaccinated and highly exposed to the Omicron variant. Then, if recommendations are still made, they would be based on more current evidence, which would be good because we want to be evidence-based. And I was looking at the wrong camera then, so apologies for that, and thank you for watching.